Thanks again, Maureen. So I think you'll have a survey for everybody at the end of all this, right? So one of the questions, if we don't have it this year or next year, needs to be something online of, who has the most smart aleck stuff in their presentations? Because, so I'm torn right now. So Buckaloo gave it a shot. He threw a couple in. I'm not in the running at all this year. I'm not getting there with this one. But so between the Star Wars theme from Taylor and Harbison spent 90% of his effort being a smart aleck, I am torn as to which one I'm going. And Shantae, did you notice that the DOTS building had the Empire symbol on it? So I just wanted to make sure that the M&O buildings were all the Alliance and DOTS was the Empire. I'm all right with that. All right, so I've been coming to, Mark has been coming for 19 years and others have, I don't know how many years I've been coming to these because before I was at DelDOT, I was coming as a consultant. And so this is probably my first presentation ever that's not a Traffic Geek presentation. So talk a little bit about pavement management. So here's our pavement management group. It is not a big group for the size of a program we have. So we have Sarah McDougall is in charge of the group, and she has Mike, Paul, and Larry helping her out right now. Rhonda recently retired, so we have that position posted. We have several consultants that help out with this. Our road ratings, AECom and Mandalay. Our pavement management software and the company that helped put this presentation together is Kircher. And then I started to list out the consultants that help with the design packages, and it got to be too many. So there's a lot of consultants that help put the design packages together. Also, we have major support from a lot of different parts of the department, and so I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody, but wanted to give some shout outs to the construction folks that implement these projects, Brian, Wayne, George, and Chris, some of which I saw here today, but maybe I don't know if they're all here today or not. And in traffic, a lot of folks in traffic work on these, but particularly Max and Natre spend a lot of effort on the signing, striping, signal plans for this large program. And again, there's a lot of other folks out there, but I just wanted to highlight some of the folks that are helping with this program. So briefly, the overall pavement management program is broken down into these 5 main parts. So the pavement condition and data collection, that's basically the road ratings. So we do the road ratings for all of the roads, all the state maintained roads every other year. And then on the off year, we're doing the NHS, the National Highway System. That's part of our requirements to FHWA. In addition, and I'll talk a little bit more about the data that's collected there, but in addition to the actual road ratings of the pavement, it's also collecting the video data that a lot of us use for a variety of purposes, and it's also collecting the LiDAR data that went into the inventory that our planning division put together a few years ago. And I also just wanted to put out there that every year, the road rating data collection is collecting the LiDAR data, but they're not necessarily processing it. So there may be things that we have raw data for that if you have money, we can work with the consultant to do some of the post-processing needed for that purpose. Then there's the pavement management system, kind of pulling in the data and deciding, looking at our funding and deciding what roads we're going to be doing what treatments on, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's obviously monies involved, and then developing the individual estimates, and finally putting out the actual PS&E, and then building the projects. So here's a little bit of the history of the continuing evolution of our pavement management systems over the years. So dating back to 1990 when we started collecting data, and it was all manual at the time. So in 2007, we started doing a semi-automated, and that became the fully automated in 2016, where all the data was based on these systems that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. So again, in the before 2016, there was always a kind of a human element to it of people driving around the state, looking at the road and trying to assess based on some criteria of what the conditions are. But starting in 2016, that's been all automated. And 2019 was a big year for the program. So first, the bottom note there that a lot of effort from a lot of groups, but between pavement management, bridge, and engineering support, put this document together called the TAMP, the Transportation Asset Management Plan. That's again a federal requirement, and it primarily focuses again on pavements and bridges, which across the country are by far the two most mature transportation asset management fields. So again, a lot of other things that DelDOT owns and maintains, and we need to do asset management for, whether it's drainage or traffic signals or signs. But we have, again, nationally and in Delaware, we have some pretty mature programs for bridges and pavements. And then major system upgrades last year. We did a lot of work, the team did a lot of work on documenting standard procedures, development and finalization of a data dictionary that really well defines the pavement distresses, fleshing out of some of the decision trees that go into for the certain type of pavement and the certain distress that's found, what is the best treatment for those situations, and other upgrades like that. So here's just some views of some of the automated data collection. So it's obviously it's vehicle-mounted equipment. We get imagery, we get camera view, we get LiDAR, we get this laser crack measurement system. It's finding basically the main thing that it's looking for is the location and the width and the depths of the cracks. For now, it's all looking at surface treatments or surface problems. Again, the width and the depth of cracks. We are looking at the possibility in the future of doing some ground penetrating radar to understand better what's underneath the surface. But as of now, it's all surface. So this slide kind of describes how the details get combined into a higher level, and at the end of the day, you get, for each segment of pavement, you get an overall pavement condition. So again, it's the actual, the fatigues, the potholes, the lateral cracking, the transverse, the longitudinal, and how that ties together into these different indices, which ultimately, again, end up in your OPC. So for the overall pavement condition, again, if those of you that kind of are paying attention to this a little bit, if that score is greater than 60, then the pavement's considered good. If it's 50 to 60, it's fair, and if it's less than 50, it's considered poor. So, and again, it goes back to, depending on what the details are of the types of distresses and the types of pavement that you have, whether it's asphalt, composite, or concrete, then the system helps us decide what kind of treatment to do on those roadways. I was going to talk a little bit about our actual overall rank ratings for Delaware, but I thought it was just going to get too confusing because there's two different rating systems. There's our Delaware rating system, and then there's the federal rating system, which don't line up exactly. So the federal system really focuses on the national highway system, so that's only a subset of our roads, of course. We need to worry about all of our state-maintained roads. So other than to say, when we did the TAMP last year, under both the Delaware rating system and the federal rating system, all of our targets were met. So all the different targets we met, that a certain percentage of roads need to be good or better, and we only want a very small percentage of roads to be poor. So again, without getting into the details, both on the federal side and the state side, we met all those targets. And then really the trick moving ahead is to project out how is our pavement going to, how are those ratings going to move into the future given our funding levels? And we want to try to predict that. Are we going to be able to meet, are we going to be able to continue to meet those targets with funding levels? So this is just a little bit more about how we go through the system. We have our inventory. We get the condition data from the road ratings. We know what projects are out there. We look at the construction history. From that, again, we go through these decision trees. We look at the treatments. We combine that all together. These performance models are kind of what I was just talking about there, where if we have this performance model and we have this current rating and we have this amount of funding, projecting out into the future how our pavements are going to be performing in the future. Hopefully, some of you, if not all of you, have seen some kind of a graph like this in the past talking about pavement management. Again, this is particularly for pavement management, but this kind of a curve is really applicable to a lot of things in asset management, where you have a slight drop in time over the pavement condition, and then there's a more rapid drop-off kind of in the middle years. In this case, in the 10 to 20 year time frame is where you have a much more rapid drop-off. And if you spend a little bit of money while you're still high up on that curve, you can improve the quality, and then it starts to deteriorate again. And then if you spend a little bit of money early, you get a lot more bang for your buck than spending a lot of money when the road really is totally falling apart. Here's an example of some of the treatments and kind of how we categorize them. So our friends in the Alliance are using the patching and the crack sealing and the day-to-day, and they're dealing with the complaints, and they're doing the regular maintenance on those roadways. Then we have the kind of the preservation techniques. We don't do a lot of microsurfacing anymore, but still doing the ultra-thin overlays and chip seal type treatments. Then the rehabilitation side is the more what most people would think of as the pave and rehab, whether it's a pure overlay or the mill and fill type of job. And then we get into the full reconstruction. So a lot of you in this room, I'm sure, were involved in the 141 Center Road reconstruction. We did 113 down south a couple years ago, and so those are the more at some point, no matter how much you do the preservation or the rehabilitation, at some point you're going to have to fully rebuild these roadways. So this is just kind of that same curve, but kind of more real, actual data. Again, showing if you did nothing, it's the black line, and eventually the road turns to crap over a certain amount of time. But you want to do your preservations and then a rehabilitation, and you want to hopefully keep your road at a much higher rating for a much longer time. With that, just kind of wrapping up with the pavement management budget. I think Shantae mentioned it in her presentation that this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, program that the department delivers every year. This year, or this fiscal year, 20 being just like for the department as a whole, this program is going to be spending over $130 million this year, a combination of state and federal money. We have, at least as of now, with where our budget looks to be in FY21, there's a big drop-off, and it stays low for the next couple years, and then, so we'll see how that goes. Obviously, projecting out future funding is a challenge. We need to tie in big projects like the viaduct project, and how that's really going to take a hit out of our budget, as well as all the other capital projects that we're doing. And so the interesting thing to me is that kind of coincidentally, both pavement management and on the bridge side, we're going to have updated performance models ready probably early this year on both of them. And we'll be able to kind of project out more accurately what the performance is going to be over the years given our budgets. So once we take a look at that, then I think we'll probably have some high-level discussions about, are we putting the right amount of money into these programs, or does it need to be more, or does it need to be less? So that is it for me on that one. Any questions? All right, hopefully under 15 minutes on that one.